A very good evening and a very good day to everyone. My name is Nanda Kumar, son of Mohan. This is the corporate video from our project work team. So my name is Nanda Kumar. Now I would like to introduce my team members, which is number one is Anusha and number two is Tanasiran. So based on the report for the soap making process company. So we found some of the hazard identification throughout the video. First one is hazard identification. The hazard is anything that has the potential to cause injury or illness or death as well as damage to the environment or property or equipment. Each work on environment and activity is inspected to accept any hazard that are inherent in that location job. Now I want to go to the second point, which is risk analysis. This analysis is known as analyzing on the risk that having in our workplace. It is also a scale that is used to analyze and assess the hazard. And the third one is risk control. Risk control is commonly used in working place to make sure we can control the possible problem just by taking some action on it to make sure the problem didn't become the big or the serious illness. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Anusha. One of the solutions with appropriate technology to achieve the objective of the small medium enterprise company is by documenting the hierarchical responsibilities and accountability. It is done by proper management of hazards sporadically identified in the workplace. It can be done through effective process. Ultimately, the individual or team who identified the hazard must ensure proper communication of the hazard to the appropriate workplace authority, for example, manager, department head, or designated person. Each hierarchy must be fully documented. The hierarchy must be completed by hierarchy team and signed by the in-charge personnel of the area. Employer must communicate all hierarchy to employees, monitor the follow-up action, and keep up the record. The hazard identification process is to identify the hazards that may cause major potential accidents for various operational modes, including normal operations, startup and shutdown, as well as potential disturbances, emergency or abnormal conditions. Occupational hazard can be grouped into two categories. First one is health hazard and the second one is safety hazard. Hazards identification risk assessment is a process for determining the evaluating adverse consequences, for example, potential loss and injury. Hierarchy is done to determine the type of activity which then identifies the hazard so that the risk of accident is obtained. The objective of hierarchy implementation is to identify all factors that may risk workers towards an accident, consider the possibilities of hazards that may occur under any circumstances and conditions. Next, I would like to report the problem that is found in the workplaces. The first one is the workers are not wearing their personal protective equipment such as gloves, goggles, face shields, earplug during the process of manufacturing. Two different of equipment were used simultaneously during the mixing process. The workers are not wearing the personal protective equipment such as gloves and safety shoes during the process. Next, the arrangements of machineries are not in order and they are messy. The electrical appliances such as extension wire are exposed on the wet floor. The workers are not wearing the personal protective equipment such as gloves. Next, constrained working spaces and unarranged things scattered around working space. The next one is applying direct hand to inspect the temperature level of liquid in machine due to lack of equipment. The purpose of hierarchy are as follows. The first one is to identify all the factors that may cause harm to employees and others. The second one is to consider what the changes are of that harm actually befalling anyone in the circumstances or of a particular case and the possible severity that could come from it. The third one is to enable employers to plan, introduce and monitor preventive measures to ensure that the risks are adequately controlled at all times. Thank you.
My name is Tanasiran Padmanathan and today I am going to talk about result and discussion of implementing the hierarchy. One of the best solutions in hierarchy system is by using the controls. Control is the elimination or inactivation of a hazard in a manner such the hazard does not pose a risk to the workers who have to enter to area or work on equipment in the course of scheduled work. Hazards should be controlled at their source where the problem is created. The closer a control to the source of the hazard is the better. This method is often referred to as applying engineering control. If this does not work, hazards can be often be controlled along the path to the worker, between the source and the worker. This method can be referred to as applying administrative control. If this is not possible, access must be controlled at the level of the worker through the use of personal protective equipment (PPE), although this is the least desirable control. Selecting a suitable control often involves evaluating and selecting short and long-term control. Implementing short-term measures to protect workers until permanent control can be put in place. Implementing long-term control when reasonable, predictable. For example, suppose a noise hazard is identified. Short-term control might require workers to use hearing protection, but for the long term, permanent control might remove or isolate the noise source. Type of control at the source of the hazard. First of all, are elimination, which are gathering of a hazardous job tool, process, machine, or substance, is perhaps the best way of protecting workers. For example, a surface firm might decide to stop buying and cutting up scrap bulk fuel tanks due to explosion hazard. Second are substitution. Sometimes doing the same work is the less hazardous way is possible. For example, a hazardous chemical can be replaced with a less hazardous one. Controls must be protect workers for any new hazards that are created. Next are engineering control. First of all are redesign. Job and processes can be reworked to make them safer. For example, container can be made easier to hold and lift. Second are isolation. If a hazard cannot be eliminated or replaced, it can be sometimes be isolated, contained, or otherwise kept away from workers. For example, an isolated and air conditioned control room can protect operator from a toxic chemical. Third are automation. Dangerous process can be automated or mechanized. For example, computer control robots can handle spot welding operation in car plants. Care must be taken to protect workers from robotic edges. Next are barriers. Hazards can be blocked before it reaches workers. For example, special curtains can prevent eye injuries from welding arc radiation. Proper equipment guarding will protect workers from contacting moving parts. Next are absorption. Buffer can block or absorb noise. Lockup system can isolate energy sources during repair and maintenance. Usually, the further the control keeps away a hazard from the worker, the more effective it is. Dilution. Some hazard can be diluted or dissipated. For example, where ventilation system can dilute toxic gases before they reach operator. Next are administrative control. Safer work procedure, which are workers can be required to use standardized safety practices. The employee is expected to ensure that workers follow these practices. Work procedure must be periodically reviewed with workers and updated. Next are supervision and training. Initial training on safe work procedure and refresher training should be offered, and appropriate supervision to assist workers in identifying possible hazards and evaluating work procedure. Next are job rotation, and other procedure can reduce the time the workers are exposed to hazard. For example, workers can be rotated through job requiring repetitive standard and muscle movement to prevent cumulative thermal injuries. Next are housekeeping. Repair and maintenance program. Housekeeping includes cleaning, waste disposal, and spray cleanup. Tools and equipment machinery are less likely to cause injury if they are kept clean and well maintained. Next are for recommendation for improvement. Control recommendations are provided based on risk identification and risk assessment that have been performed. Recommended control is a process of developing alternative solution of identified risk. Control recommendations are reviewed based on the engineering aspect or technical control, administrative aspect and provision of safety equipment in the form of personal protective equipment adapted to departmental environmental conditions. It is important in the making of standard operating procedure on the use of machine and practitioner equipment. Providing safely briefing before the practicum is carried out. Monitoring the procedure of activity and monitoring the use of personal protective equipment. The usage of personal protective equipment are personal protective equipment PPE means any equipment which is intended to be worn or held by a person at work and which protect him against one and more risks to his health or safety and any additional accessory designed to meet that objective. It may also require a product, for example, when traffic hazards are present, high visible and distinguishable vest must be worn. In other words, the operator of the machine should follow the following to reduce the possible problem in the workplace. The workers must wear goggles at all times and must follow the standard operating procedure. Do not touch any hot surface. Use gloves when handling the machine and use risk control insects in place for their protection. And lastly, have appreciation of the nature of the hazard, the risk association with their use.
Now I would like to explain about the conclusion part. This report is conducted by us to identify the hierarchy system. It is conducted to solve any issue that may happen in the soap making company, and also the risk ranking is one of the present and possible hazard is evaluated by which divide them into low, medium, and high extreme risk level. We can solve any possible problem by implementing this method, because when we conduct this method, hierarchy method, for sure we can identify the hazard and also risk control and also risk analysis. By this, for sure we can solve the problem in the soap making company, soap making process. That's all from me. Thank you very much for listening, and also thank you very much to my team members.